Okay, the next dinim we're going to learn here in Kitzur is basically the dinim of brachis. Okay, so it starts with the brachas that when do you make Mezonot, when do you make Hamotzi, and things like that. So number one, what's important to know is that there are 5 grains. Halachically, there's 5 grains. In English, there are wheat, barley, rye, oat, and spelt. These are 5 grains that are unique. They are called offshoots of chita or seira, offshoots of wheat and barley. Now, if somebody, because they're special, so there's a special bracha on things made from flour of those 5 grains. So let's say somebody takes wheat flour, okay, and mixes it with water and bakes it. So then that becomes hamotzi. Because it's flour and water, it's hamotzi. The same thing, you have oat flour, rye flour, whatever it is. Flour from one of those 5 species is, and you bake it, not if you cook it. If you bake it, it's hamotzi. And the smallest amount, you have to make hamotzi. Now, there are certain opinions, like for instance, the Sephardic community, on matzah, which is also flour and water, but it's baked very thin, like a wafer. So they will make mezonot on it, except on Pesach they make hamotzi. But in the Ashkenazic world, generally speaking, if it's flour and water baked, again, flour from those 5 grains, if it's flour and water and baked, it's hamotzi. Now what happens if it's flour, not flour and water? It's flour and other liquids. For instance, eggs, oil, juice, but it depends what type of juice. We'll get to that in a second. So what happens if you make a piece of cake? Now cake is usually not flour and water. Cake is usually eggs and oil and different things. So then, there's really an argument in halacha, what bracha do you make on that? There are opinions in halacha, in the Gemara, that say you make hamotzi on that. Okay? Because they say it's baked, it's flour and juice, or eggs, or oil, whatever, you make hamotzi. Other opinions say, and this is the way most people paskin, that if it's flour and juice, I'm using the word, in other words, not water, so then it's mezonot. Unless if you eat a lot of it. And we'll discuss how much you have to eat. That sometimes if you eat, let's say, let's call it a mezonot bagel. The stores sell, it's called a mezonot bagel. Why is it called a mezonot bagel? Because they don't make it flour and water. They make it flour and other liquids. So because of that, it's mezonot. So many people will have flour and water and bagel and they'll make a mezonot out of it. The problem is, if you eat a lot of other food, or a lot of that food, most of the time you're going to have to wash either on another piece of bread, or if you eat enough of that bagel, you're going to have to wash on the bagel itself. I'm going through a lot of different laws on one foot. What? No, if it's mezonot, then if you don't have a lot of it, then you have to make a mezonot. Now, what happens though if you have flour and juice, but it's not a solid batter? It's a pourable batter. So then it's mezonot no matter how much of it you eat. To give you a simple practical example, sponge cake is made with a thin batter, then you put it into a bowl, a pan or whatever, and then you bake it. So because it's a pourable batter, it's not an isa, you pour it. It's not a thick dough, you can pour it. So then, no matter how much of it you eat, it's mezonot. One second. So what happens now in a lot of the stores, not so much in LA, because most of the Rabbanim don't allow it, but what happens, you have what's called Mezonot pizza. So why is it called Mezonot pizza? Because most of it is flour and water. I'm sorry, no, it's Mezonot pizza officially is flour and juice, and it's baked. So again, it's like a cake. It's not, okay. What?
What kind of juice is it?
We're going to get to the juice in a second. What? What are you asking?
It's like the brownie batters. A lot of cake batters are not easily pourable. Like it's poured from the mixing bowl into a...
Yeah, so that's pourable batter. That then it's not possible but kissing it at all. And then no matter how much of it you eat, it's mezainis. Now, with the juices is as follows. Hello? You asked the question. With the juices is as follows. In halacha, the halacha is like this. If you have liquid in a batter, if the majority of the liquid is water, it's hamotzi. If the majority of the liquid is oil, eggs, juice, then it's mezainis. So let's say you can make a batter, okay, together with water and eggs, let's say. You can have 51% is water, it's hamotzi. 51% is eggs and oil and that, then it's mezainis. So it could be very small amount. 1 second. So liquids all joined together. Let's say you have juice and eggs and oil, that all goes into one category. So if that all together is more than 51%, so then it would be a mezainis. But, and this is a very big but, a lot of times when people make their own cakes, they'll make it with juice, but they'll make it with juice and concentrate. Now, juice and concentrate is a different story. It's sold as juice, but halachically, it's not juice. Halachically, it's majority water. Now, to understand a little bit, the way it works, concentrate means when you say something from concentrate. So to understand it, you have the frozen juices. You know, frozen cans of orange juice, let's say. So it's very concentrated. How is that made? When they squeeze the oranges, there's a process, they take out the water from the juice, okay, and what's left is the solid juice. So then what do you do when you open up the can? They tell you to add 2 cans of water to 1 can of juice, or 3 cans of water to 1 can of juice, okay? So now you can have, let's say, orange juice from freshly squeezed oranges is juice. But if you make it from concentrated juice, let's say you take a frozen can of orange juice and you mix 3 cans of water in it. So now it's 3/4 water and 1/4 juice, halachically. So if you make a cake with concentrated orange juice, so then you have a majority of water. It's not majority of juice anymore. And you have to be very careful with that because a lot of times, especially at home, you buy juice and concentrate and you bake a cake with that type of apple juice, orange juice, whatever, but halachically it would really be considered water, or the majority water. Unless if you have a lot of other eggs and oil and all that. So people actually need to be careful about, when you bake a cake with juice, what exactly liquid content are you putting in there? What?
Other than matzah and cake made out of juice, what was it that no matter how much you eat, you still say Mezonot? Was there anything else?
Yeah, I said if it's flour and juice, but it's a pourable batter, like sponge cake. Mm-hmm. You ever bake a cake? Yes. You did?
No, I've seen it.
Okay.
No.
Good, because I haven't. You know what sponge cake is?
Yes.
Okay, you pour it into a pan, and then you bake it. Yes. But it's not like flour and water, you make challah, you make a thick dough.
I see.
Okay? Like a Danish.
Aerated.
A Danish is thick dough.
Yes.
Right? This is a pourable batter. Sometimes you have a brownie mix, which is a pourable batter. Zenda din is, according to all opinions, it's mezainis, no matter how much of it you eat. Because it's not called dough. Now, what happens if a person takes flour and water and instead of baking it, cooks it. Like a matzah ball. Okay, what's a matzah ball? Matzah ball is crumbs of matzah that you mix in there. And then,
Pasta.
huh? Pasta, no, not necessarily. Pasta, most of them are flour and eggs. It's not flour, but certain things you have like lasagna sheets. That's flour and water. But what happens if you make a matzah ball? Okay, now a matzah ball is cooked, so therefore it's going to be mezainis no matter how much of it you eat. So anything cooked is mezainis. What happens if you take bread and you cook it? It becomes mezainis. You rebake it, it becomes back hamotzi. You cook it again, it's mezainis. In other words, if it's cooked, it's mezainis. If it's baked, it's hamotzi. Now, there are opinions in halacha. The Alter Rebbe in Shulchan Aruch in Siddur does not hold like that, but like the Mishnah Berurah holds like that, and a lot of poskim, contemporary poskim hold like that. There is another definition of pasaba b'kisnin. There's really three definitions of pasaba b'kisnin. But the Alter Rebbe basically, most people bring down only two. So one pasaba b'kisnin, that the Gemara says like this: pasaba b'kisnin is mezainis. If listen to pasaba b'kisnin, that's the expression. Pasaba b'kisnin is mezainis. If you eat a lot of it, it's hamotzi. Okay, that's what the Gemara says. Now the question is, what is pasaba b'kisnin? Some opinions say it's flour and juice. Like we said, flour and juice, you make a mezainis. If you eat a lot of it, you're going to have to make a hamotzi. Right? There's another definition of pasaba b'kisnin. And pasaba b'kisnin, according to that opinion, means it's a kiss, like a pocket. Meaning, you take flour and water, okay, give me an example, a pita. Yeah, a pita is flour and water. But when they bake it, they take the pita dough and they fill it up with pie filling. Pie filling.
Oh, pie filling.
So it's flour and water, but in the middle is like a pocket that you put in pie filling. So according to halacha, that's also mezainis, according to many opinions. Okay, it's flour and water, but the fact that you put in pie filling or things like that, delicacies, it's mezainis.
Turnover.
Huh?
Turnover? Even if you bake it?
A turnover would probably, yeah, but anyway, it's mezainis. But in about 1 second. But what happens, but what happens if the filling is cheese or meat or eggs? Okay? So the Alter Rebbe holds that would be hamotzi. That would be hamotzi, because it's not a delicacy, you're eating it to fill you up. The Mishnah Berurah and other poskim hold, no, that's still pasaba b'kisnin, that it's a mezainis. So that's why many people hold that if you have a pizza, yeah, that's made with flour and water dough, but you put cheese on it, and all the other junk you put on a pizza, so according to them, it would anyway be a mezainis, unless if you eat a lot of it. Because again, that's one definition of pasaba b'kisnin. And if you eat a lot of it, then, so in other words, if somebody, even according to the other opinions, if you eat pizza, hamotzi pizza really, but they baked it with cheese on it, according to many opinions, it would be mezainis. We hold it's hamotzi any amount. But many opinions say it's mezainis. But if you eat a few slices of pizza and you get full, it's going to be hamotzi anyway. Because your kaveh suda, you established a meal on it. The truth of the matter is, even if you have a pizza, mezainis pizza, you know, like especially the frozen pizzas from New York, you get that says mezainis, the bracha is mezainis. But if you sit down for dinner and eat 3-4 slices of pizza, even if it's a mezainis pizza, you're going to get full. So there, becomes a hamotzi. The only question is, do you make a hamotzi on that thing itself, or do you have to make a hamotzi on another piece of bread, and then eat the tiny piece of bread, and then you bench anyway?
So most people
What?
If you eat one and you kaveh suda on it, is that enough?
What do you mean kaveh suda?
You kaveh suda on the one slice of pizza.
You're not kaveh suda on one side of the pizza. Kaveh suda means when you eat that you get full.
Let's say you get
The
four.
question would be, if it's a sudas mitzvah. Let's say you go to a bris, and they serve Zaynas bagels. And you only have half a bagel. Okay? The question is, does the sudas mitzvah make it into a established meal? Because of the mitzvah aspect of it. But if somebody has a Zaynas roll, okay, and they eat it, they have, let's say, half a sandwich, or they have a sandwich, but it's not, if they don't get full from it, then it could be Mezonot. If you get full from it, then depending how much of it you eat, you might have to wash and bench on that piece of thing itself, on the Mezonot bagel, or you'd have to wash and bench it and wash and make a mate another piece of bread, and then you would bench anyway.
So a lot of times when you buy isn't one Mezonot bagel, if you go to New York, one cream cheese Mezonot bagel, is that kaveh suda?
Do you get full from it or not?
So it depends on each individual. It's
Yeah,
not like
yeah. There is an individual, if you get full from it, then you have to wash, and that one bagel that you get full from, you're going to have to wash on another piece of hamotzi, make a hamotzi, another piece of bread, and if you have to bench.
Like a
Yeah.
slice of pizza, but you feed yourself with all kind of other stuff. You get out food.
If you get full from everything together, it's like you got full halachic from the pizza itself.
So you
Yep. To be continued.